Welcome to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I am your host, as always, Jeremy, here trying to make the world a little more normal. But these days, that's a hard thing to do. But I am joined tonight by my guest, Wajid Hassan, who I found on Matchmaker.fm. And he had an interesting profile with some interesting. The tagline that they sent to me in the email about him was very interesting, so I had to have him on to explain it more. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. How are you doing tonight, Wahid?
Doing great, Jeremy. Good to be on your show.
Glad to have you. So, the first question I always ask everybody on this show is what got you into the paranormal slash supernatural? Like, what led you down that road?
I think we're all born with inherent powers of psychic vision, clairvoyance, clairaudience. I believe that I'm a firm believer of reincarnation. I believe that some of these attributes are brought with us from previous lives. Some of us work hard in previous lives in order to gain those experiences. I had a number of mystical, paranormal experiences growing up, and then later on, following my own yogi master, an Englishman by the name of Dr. George King. And so I think it wasn't a case of me getting into the paranormal. I think the paranormal was already there, and I just kind of adjusted myself into it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, and that's actually kind of a good segue into my second question. Always tell us about some experiences you've had with paranormal or supernatural entities of any kind.
Well, I wrote a few of my experiences in the book I published in August of 2020 called The Struggle for World Sanity. And uh, some of my early experiences I put in as well. But in regards to paranormal experiences, I mean, I've had more than my fair share of being of having entities in my room, which I was aware of, tapping walls and stuff like that, kind of uneasy experiences to having experience where I was aware of somebody standing next to me in my bed physically and then disappeared. So, I mean, um, one of the most profound experiences I ever had was at the age of 18 when I lived in London, and I had this strong feeling that I needed to go out into the wilderness, and this lasted for like 3 days, and finally I couldn't ignore this strong urge or intuitive feeling. So I looked at the map of England and I traced it to a place 3 miles outside of Stonehenge, and I knew that I had to be in that particular place midnight that Friday. Don't ask me how. I just kind of, my intuition just kind of knew there was this psychic intuition that I had to be there. And so that Friday, I took the coach, or the Greyhound, as they call it in America, and went out by Stonehenge, walked 3 miles out in the dark country roads, and exactly at midnight, this white disc-shaped object appeared in the sky and seemed to move from a western to an easterly direction. And then later on, another disc-shaped object appeared and moved from a south to a north direction, which to me indicated the sign of the cross. And the cross, as you know, goes way past Christianity. It's been used as a religious symbol way back in times of Egypt and Atlantis and Lemuria. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, I stood there, and this much larger craft came over and hovered over exactly where I was. And this beam of energy came through me, which was very spiritual in nature. And it came, and it brought me into this kind of state of um, kind of hope and bliss and inspiration. And for me, I realized at that time that whoever was controlling this spacecraft or UFO were not only highly technically advanced, but also spiritually advanced. And then from there, I guess that's where my journey took me to follow the teachings of my yogi master. And I kept it quiet, Jeremy, for many, many years. This was something very spiritual to me, and of course, I didn't want to reveal it to anybody because they'd probably think I was a kook. And
Of
so
course.
I kind of kept it quiet. But recently, there's been a tremendous interest. This UFO phenomenon is not going away, and people want to know what's going on, in regards to life on other planets, and so I decided, after many years, to reveal that experience, because I want to let people know that we're not the only people alone in this solar system and beyond, but there are beings that have been watching us for millions of years. So that to me was, I would say, the highlight of one of my paranormal experiences.
That sounds amazing. And I mean, I've had a UFO sighting, but it was nowhere near that close or that like the feeling. I had like barely any feeling when I had it. Like it was just like oh look, there's a group of UFOs in the sky, which I didn't even see at first. My son had to point them out, but so I mean that experience right there just sounds mind blowing and
Yeah, I
sounds like
mean,
it would change your life.
many people have UFO sightings. I wasn't even interested in UFOs when I had this premonition, and so I think this was a planned operation. I think it was designed so that I would mention it in my book, in the years to come. So I think it was something that they knew would be publicized down the road. I don't think it was done specifically for my sake. It was done more for a universal experience. And again, people keep an open mind. It's up to them to decide. But for me, I don't have to explain to anybody what I experienced.
Of course, I mean, and like you said, these days, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, UFOs and aliens are becoming a daily talked about subject for people who they never would have thought they would talk about in their lives because of the government releasing the fact that UFOs exist.
Yeah,
And
and then we have to go back to Eastern philosophy, Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, to understand. I mean, my yogi master was able to project from his physical body, physically astral project in full consciousness. And people who are psychic are aware that there are other invisible realms above us and below us. And so, in regards to experiences with ghosts or paranormal and stuff like that, it's really basically contacting dimensions that are either above us or below us. And he mentioned there was 6 levels above us and 4 levels below us. So it depends on our vibration and who we attract. We can attract some pretty nasty entities from below, or we can attract some highly elevated entities from above. And coming back to reincarnation again, the Western religions have deliberately hid this truth from their millions and millions of followers, specifically so that they could keep this one life to live and have control over the masses. In fact, some Christian scholars recently did their own research and found out that reincarnation was actually taught up to 700 years ago in the Christian religion. And that meeting that they had in Constantinople, they took that teaching out deliberately so that they could control the masses. So that truth of reincarnation and different levels of experience of vibration where we go to and come back, those truths have to be told these days for very specific reasons. It will dispel a lot of the ignorance that's going on right now, where the world is in such tremendous chaos.
yes, I agree. And I have been a firm believer in reincarnation for a long time now. And like reincarnation to me, there's just too much proof in this world that it exists. There's too many examples, especially out of India, even some in America, where like you can't deny that this is reincarnation because young children know things they shouldn't know about past lives. So reincarnation has to exist to me. Like it just makes sense.
Well, I think this thing in religions with the punishing God, and you have one life to live, and either you do what we tell you based on fear, or you will be doomed to eternity in hell. is, again, a big conspiracy that was put by the elders of the church, whatever church it is, Judaism, Islam, Christianity. They had this orthodox view of, well, this one life to live, and based on my own yogi master's contact with higher beings, they said that eventually this truth will be revealed, and those who have hidden this truth will be replaced, because in these days there is the sorting of the wheat from the chaff, and the truths which have been hidden or suppressed are being revealed. Um, One aspect of reincarnation, which would really help, I mean, it would, first of all, Jeremy, it would answer this so-called inequality of life, why somebody's born rich or poor, a young person has cancer, another person, can play the piano at the age of 3. I mean, these are all attributes from past lives. And people would be very careful these days going to war. It would diminish war tremendously, knowing that they may be going somewhere where they may be murdering their own parent, brother or sister or father or mother in a past life. And I think these things need to be told these days, so that things like, religious pride or racial pride or belonging to this one race or even this one gender can be totally dispelled, because we're all different genders, we're all different races, we're all different religions, which we go through each life experience in order to gain that experience of life, which the ultimate is to reach, enlightenment and high states of mystic meditation. That's what we're here for. We're not here to suffer, and all this suffering and chaos that's occurring right now on the planet is a direct result of our own ignorance and our misuse of free will. Won't you agree?
Of course. I mean, I as much as I don't like to do this on the podcast, I mean, because I there are people believe what they want to believe, but I am not a fan of organized religion at all, because organized religion has lied to the masses for thousands of years. I mean, dating back to the so-called stories in the Bible. I mean, the religious heads have been lying for thousands of years about things just to have control. Kings of England and other countries have changed the Bible to fit what they wanted to say. They've taken out books. It's just, to me, it's just horrible what they've done to it. I mean, I would love to be able to read a full edition Bible before anything was removed from it. That's what I would love to read one day, but I doubt I'll ever be able to get my hands on it.
Yeah, we can. I guess we can put down organized religion, but there's a lot of people that follow religions. My mother is a very Orthodox Muslim and a very spiritual woman, and I met many Christians and Jews and Buddhists and Hindus who are just wonderful, wonderful people. So
Yeah,
it's not the actual religion itself or the aspects of religion. It's how, like you said, has been molded into dogma in order to control, and the control is fear, and fear is a weapon of forces of darkness that want us to keep us in the divide and conquer principle of putting us against each different religions or different races. And so we need to dispel that, and I believe that there is a great awakening that's occurring based on the age of Aquarius coming in, and the planet herself being a living, breathing entity, raising her vibration. So there is an awakening. In my book, I mentioned that our intuition is the greatest lie detector ever built. And so if we use our intuition, our discrimination, we can definitely see the false from the truth. And I think women have it more as well, because they're more psychic than men. But still, all of us have that inherent power within us, and it's up to us, either be molded by the media or the press or the generals or the politicians, or listen to the teachings of these people that created these religions. I don't think the leaders of these religions uh, were bad. I think they were fantastic. But if you study the teachings of Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and other great masters, they're pretty much the same. They were just given in different cultures, different times, but they all say the same thing. Like, be kind to each other and don't kill each other. You know.
You know,
So
those basic humanic principles that we all need to have. But I mean, yeah, it's just yeah, I agree. They all the founder like all the people you met, all the figures you mentioned who help inspire these religions, were basically they were basically all the same. I mean, I studied Eastern religion in college for a semester, and it as I'm listening to the teacher tell me all these things, I'm like, this all sounds like church when I was a kid. But so I mean, the basic lessons are the same. Be good to each other. I mean, that's just the way it is. Be good. I mean, but it's just. But you did mention the age of Aquarius, which it's funny because I talk about that on almost every episode of my show with anybody who's into the spiritual because I've been told by many, and I believe it because it's just the way it is. There's a awakening, a great awakening going on in this world for the last. Some say the last 5 years. I've had plenty say since 2012. Now I don't know exactly what time it's been going on since, but even I feel this like at this point like that. I feel like I'm starting to develop something since I started this podcast, especially and talking to all these mediums and psychics. Like it feels like something's trying to work in my head that never worked before, and I can't master it yet. I can't even reach it yet, but I'm trying. I've been trying since I've been talking to psychics and mediums, and they've been trying to teach me how to do it, but it takes time.
well, it's interesting you mentioned 2012 because that was the end of the Mayan calendar, and it was
Exactly.
like supposed to be the end of the world, but actually it was a new beginning. And so um, the age of Aquarius, astrologically, the emanations coming from the planets in the solar system is pushing now mankind into oneness, to understand that we are actually one race as opposed to different races. And then the ultimate goal in this oneness is service to others. I think that's the new religion now that should be taught: service to others, regardless of race, color, creed, or religion. In other words, that's what counts in these days: is being of service, either through prayer, sending out healing, either to in your community or your country or the world, but understanding that we are and have always been one race, and this division was created by us, wasn't created by anything divine, and we just need to realize this aspect of oneness. And people are awakening, people are thinking for themselves, and this psychic and mental um, bondage that's been created by forces that are very powerful and very evil to control mankind are slowly being broken. And well, it has been prophesized. That was another reason why I wrote the book, Jeremy, is to give people a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's been prophesied that in the centuries to come, with the raising of the vibrations, despite everything that we see today, and we're kind of under the cloud of maybe another nuclear war if we're not careful, but despite all the darkness that surrounds us right now, there is going to be a new millennium, a new age, a golden age that's going to occur on this planet. And most of the uh, and people will have a choice: either they conform to this raising of vibration spiritually and spiritualize mass themselves, or they won't be allowed to live on this planet. They will actually be reincarnated on a younger, less evolved world in this solar system to go through the terrors of the history that we created here 18 million years ago. So these are things that have been foreseen by the prophets of not only old but recent prophets. And so that's something, again, an aspect of truth which most of the masses are not even aware of.
Which that right there is what you were talking about when you said the world needs to know the truth in the tagline I saw, I believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's time. It's time that that people realized that we haven't been given the truth. The uh, we haven't really followed spiritual principles, not religions, but spiritual principles, like you mentioned, basic spiritual principles, understanding. I mean, the kids in school, before even they're taught math, they should be taught the law of karma and the law of reincarnation before everything. That the law of karma is a divine law that states that action and reaction is opposite and equal. So everything that you do, you're responsible for. So I mean, the law of karma, clearly mentions that if you murder somebody, you may even get away with it with a good attorney in this life, but it doesn't take you away from the karma of murdering somebody. Either you will be murdered in this life, or the next life in a similar fashion. Again, not to punish you, but to teach you that you don't do these things. So if young people were understood the law of karma, they'd be careful and be, of course, me in my younger days, I did a lot of things which I'm not very proud of, but at least I'm trying in my own way to be a better person. And so if people start realizing that they are responsible for their actions, that they have to control their hate thoughts and thoughts of murder and robbery and violence and all this other stuff, they will get the same reaction. So in other words, if we send healing out to the world and help raise the world, that healing will come back to us and help us evolve. I mean, it's so simple, Jeremy. I think it just goes over people's head because it's such a simple law, but people don't understand it, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I've always been I've been a big believer in karma since I was in high school and I learned about the concept. And I mean, the whole idea of dharma and karma, like I like that idea. It makes sense to me. And since then, I have tried to do what I think is good. What I think is good. Like, if someone needs my help, I'm gonna help them. People ask me all the time because I'm a tall guy. Hey, can you reach that in the top shelf for me in the supermarket? I'm like, sure, of course. Every time, I never say no. I'm busy. I always say yes, of course I will, because it takes a second of my time. I'm not gonna be there for an hour trying to help people. Like, it's a second. I mean, it's all it takes is doing little good things for a short amount of time here and there, and eventually, I do feel like it comes back to me because it's just anytime I'm in a bad spot and I need financial help or I need emotional help, mental help, anything like that, all of a sudden someone will come to me that I never met before and just be like, "You look like you could," and they'll basically say, "You look like you could use some help." And I'm like, "Oh my god, the universe works in mysterious ways." And that right there is karma. The universe works in mysterious ways, and it's not that mysterious though, because I put it out there, and eventually it comes back. It may take time, but eventually it will come back.
Yeah, and people need to understand that they can't take anything with them when they die. Can't even take a cent with them. But the only thing they can take with them are their good deeds and their bad deeds. And if you live a life that's geared towards, excuse me, not to sneeze there. If they live a life which demands, that they're nice to people and whatever, it also adds dividends for their next life. So in other words, in their next life they'll be given more opportunities to do greater good. I mean, the great teachers talked about prayer, and prayer is totally misunderstood, especially in the Orthodox religions. But prayer properly, speaking of psychic, channeling psychic energies and spiritual energies, we have, of course, most listeners are aware that we have an aura, we have psychic senses, which we attract energies and send energies out. You can stand next to another person, either they have a good vibe or a bad vibe, either you're comfortable with them or you're uncomfortable. This is all to do with the energy field around us. And so, we're spiritual beings in physical bodies. And when the physical body dies, our soul or spiritual body goes with us. And so, again, another aspect of truth is that we're receivers and channelers of spiritual energy. And if we understand that, how to send this energy out, raise our hands, and we have psychic senses in the palms and the heart center, and send this out as a stream of vibrant pranic energy, which is tangible. It's just like electricity, but just on a different vibrational sequence. Uh, that in itself is another call for action, which people are ignoring. And it could solve the whole situation in regards to peace or war on this planet. I mean, my yogi master said that the only energy crisis on this planet is a spiritual energy crisis. Are you there?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
Okay.
sense.
Uh, and if people send this spiritual energy out, because we have physical pollution, but we also have mental, psychic pollution as well. We have a mind belt that's filled with this hatred and violence. So if we transmute this by sending this energy of white light, if 1 million people raise their hands tonight and for 15 minutes send this energy out to say Ukraine, they could dissolve that war within 3 days. If the leaders of the world got together on the media and said, raise your hands and send this spiritual energy out to create peace, it would transform the world within a month. But what are they doing instead? They're sending billions of more murder weapons to appease, the profit makers that control the arms, and in the end, if we use this simple principle, all that billions of dollars or currencies that are used could be used to help the poor and destitute in the same countries that are sending out all this money for more welfare. I mean, warfare and murder I think, is against the principles of divine law. We're not supposed to murder anybody, either in peace or in war. I think it's a vile cosmic crime, personally.
It is. But you're never, like you said, you're never going to see the world leaders get up there and do that, because it would go against all the people that are paying them and got them in office, which that's the corrupt system we live in, where people are basically bribed to get in office,
Yep.
and they have to fulfill all these promises to the people they promised they would do things for when they gave them the money, which it's sad. Politicians are bought; they're not elected. That's been the case for many years.
Yeah, and they don't actually make the decisions. It's the people who control the money behind that buy them, the corporations that make you know, or the warmongers. They're the ones that make the decisions for them. They're just puppets. It doesn't matter who's elected every 4 years. Both sides are, like you said, are bought out. That's why the higher beings have said that politics is not the answer. That the monetary system is not the answer. The monetary system they say, is a cancer in the heart of spiritual man. It keeps everybody in debt, keeps everybody worried about material things. That is not the answer. And politics, not only in this country but every other country, has never worked. Has never created peace. The only true politics is the spiritualization of everybody and helping everybody. That's a true political system that will be, not might be, adopted in the future. And all these politicians and warmongers, and if people look more to these spiritual masters like Jesus and Buddha and Krishna than they do, and they look up to billionaires and treat them like gods who don't even care about the masses anyway, this world will definitely be a lot different than it is. Absolutely.
I for one can't wait for that day to come, because that will be a much more peaceful, better world to live in. Where, I myself worry about financial things every day of the week because I have a family of four I have to support, and I try my best to do it, but things don't always go my way. I have a decent job, but of course, no job is really able to truly give you the cost of living nowadays, unless you're really high up there and you are making the big bucks. But it's just the way it is nowadays, and it's sad. The world needs to return to a more spiritual. I wish I lived in the world like it was back in medieval times, where you bartered for everything. You didn't need money. You bartered.
Right.
Everybody used their own skills. But that's just the way life is now, and it's sad. But hopefully someday soon it will change. I don't think it will be in my lifetime, but hopefully in my kid's lifetime. I think maybe.
Well, it will eventually change, and we'll be part of it. The thing is, it's not going to be handed to us on a plate. Every man, woman, and child has to make the effort to spiritualize themselves in whatever ways. And there's hundreds of ways to be of service. So we have to make the effort. Then the effort, we reach up to the higher beings. The higher beings can't come to us. We have to reach up to them for the inspiration and the strength, and it will be given to us. And so that, it has been promised that in the near future that there will be a planet where there will be no pollution, no atomic bombs, open land and sea, no races or religions, but just a spiritually minded race that cares for everybody else equally. And that's been promised because of this raising of the Mother Earth's vibrations, the dawning of the new age, and again, to repeat, people are becoming, I mean, even quantum physics is understanding parallel universes, different dimensions, that we don't live in just one physical dimensions. There's dimensions above us and below us that we can't see now because we don't tune into them, or they're invisible to us. But if you're psychic, anyway psychic, you are aware that these realms exist. And there's been a constant battle between, I believe, the forces of darkness, which want to control the souls of people, and the forces of light, which want to save us. I think there's an invisible war, energy war, that's going on behind the scenes that we're not even aware of, and we can help the forces of light, or the angels in the Bible, or different other religions, by sending this energy, by sending this power out, and helping raise the masses. I think that's the biggest duty that we can. And again, like everybody has a job and family commitment and whatever, and so that we're not being asked to spend hours in ashram praying for peace. We're being asked en masse that we do our bit, even if it's 15 minutes a day. I belong to a group of people that meet daily from I think 35 different countries, and we send out power on a daily basis. So if you don't know how to send out spiritual power, you can join us. It's free. There's no charge. Non-denominational. They can go to the website 12blessings.org, the 12 being numerical, and that way we can we can all get together en masse and start sending this power. And people are doing that. It's not that, but there's just not enough people. And yeah, the leaders of the religions and the governments are not going to tell the masses to rise up en masse in peace, because that's the call of action today. The new revolution will be a mental, peaceful, non-violent revolution, and that revolution is a transmutation of thought, the transmutation of the basic thoughts of hate, greed, and envy, and murder and violence that's prevailed on this planet for the last 18 million years that we've been here, and to transform that into something that actually what we were actually supposed to be, because the true history of our civilization again has not been revealed. But at one time we were extremely advanced spiritually and scientifically, and we just regressed ourselves. We just brought ourselves into a state of involution, where really we should be evolving into those great beings that we were at one time.
Yes, and I agree with that. I mean, even like every once in a while, like this, it seems like there's been a start to this type of change to spiritualism, but it always gets stopped. Like it happened in the mid 1800s. Like even Abraham Lincoln and his wife were into it. Like the president of the United States was into seances and trying to talk to the spirits, and but then he, of course, died unfortunately, and it kind of put a stop to things. And it happened again in the early 1900s, but then of course the First World War put a stop to it, because that's just the way it was. And it seems like violence always stops everything. Like that's just, violence is the biggest downfall of humanity, and it's a shame. It really is.
I totally agree with you. I think that every time mankind has been inspired to rise, other forces that have kept control of deliberately, yeah, they've murdered the martyrs and the saints and the leaders of religious organizations in order to keep that power. But I think now a lot of that hopefully will be stopped because of this raising of vibration, and they know that their power will eventually be diminished, because the law of karma allows, I guess. I mean, if you look at all the tyrants and dictators in the past, they've all fell. None of them has stayed in power. So the law of karma allows, I guess, certain entities to stay in power, but eventually evolution has to catch up and they all fall. And so these forces behind the scenes that live on the negative vibrations, they don't live on, they don't need money or material things, but they live on the vibrational energies of basic man. These beings eventually will be transmuted, and more than likely will be sent to this other new world to start their reincarnation cycle. So it's I think you're right. It started. I think the awakening has started on planet Earth, and it's up to people like yourself and myself and other spiritually minded, not so much religiously minded, but spiritually minded people, to let people know that these are the times of great change, and let's be part of the great change. Let's be part of something that we can leave a legacy for our children or nieces and nephews, or for the younger generation, which look to us for guidance. I don't want to leave this planet, for others, for the younger generation to suffer. I think it's my moral, ethical duty as a spiritual adult to send out the power and be of service.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I try to teach my kids all the time. I have a 5 and 8-year-old, and I try to tell them all the time, like, just be good and be nice to people, and they listen for the most part. I mean, my son gets points at school all the time for being respectful and helping others, which I praise him for it because that's what he should be doing. You should help anybody who needs help as long as it's feasibly good for you to do so. I mean, don't go if someone comes to you and says, "Oh, I need money," don't go hand them all your money because that's just not a good idea to begin with. But maybe give them a couple bucks. But I mean, if someone says, "I need your help to try to better myself, to be a better person," then help them because that won't cost you nothing. You can help people be better people just by talking to them and trying to make them see things the way they should see things.
Yeah, I mean, even in this Ukraine-Russian war, a lot of the young men in Russia, they don't want to fight. Part of them realizes they don't want to be conscripts. They don't want to be part of the mass, evil madness of war. They can think for themselves, and a lot of them have left the country. They don't want to fight and murder people. They know that that aspect is wrong, and so even there's people, a lot of people in Russia that are fighting for peace. They don't want this war, and this war. I think all wars have been planned years ahead. Doesn't
Yeah.
just happen, and it's always for the benefit of the warmongers and the profiteers, because war is a racket, and it's always designed for profit, by selling of armaments. So they don't really care about who gets murdered, so long as their profits and their stocks go up. And if people realize that, they would think very closely, first of all, about belonging to this one particular country or this particular ideology, and realize that war has never caused any lasting peace, uh, ever. And the only lasting peace is to send out the energy of universal energy of LOVE, the universal energy that comes from the sun, that's part of nature, that's part of us, that we just don't use enough of. And it's that simple. And eventually people will start realizing it, especially, you know, I think in the near future, probably there will be a financial recession, that a lot of these larger corporations will go down, and then people will start thinking, when everything is upside down, well, what's the real meaning of life? And so um, that's something that the people, unfortunately, will have to realize in circumstances that won't be very popular in the years to come. But one way or another, we have to act now in order to stop any kind of crisis from occurring. And the higher beings, I believe, Jeremy, are going towards the normal person, people like you and me, and the ordinary person. I don't think I think they've approached the military and the religious leaders and the politicians and the presidents, and nobody, and they don't want to change. So they're approaching the normal person. The inspiration that they're sending, the beams of energy that I felt that night in near Stonehenge, are the same kind of energies that are being sent to normal people these days, in order to uplift them, in order to inspire them to change and bring this spiritual renaissance back onto planet Earth. So again, that's another aspect of truth that I really like, because I think, like you said, the governments of the world and the media, they don't want people to know that there are beings from other worlds who are not only scientifically evolved, but also spiritually evolved. I mean, people are questioning the Star of Bethlehem. Was it really a star, or was it a UFO that hovered over the stable? And when the Lord Buddha was born, there was 5 disc-shaped objects seen over the temple. And when he died, there were 5 disc-shaped objects seen over where he died. So people are even questioning the origins of some of these great masters. I believe they were from higher dimensions on other planets that came to teach us, and teach us the basic spiritual laws which we've ignored. I mean, people go to church and they go to mosque and they go to the synagogue and they do their prayers, and then they go out and murder and thieve and robbery. And I mean, talk about the hypocrisy of it all. Either you do one thing and stick to it, or don't do that and then conform and listen to the politicians or the or the people who create tremendous amount of hate and suffering, because it just comes back. So I mean,
Yeah,
I can't imagine the karma of somebody like Hitler or Pol Pot or Mussolini or Stalin or Genghis Khan, who did all this mass murder. I can't imagine, I guess only the karmic gods would know the kind of repercussions that people like that would have in their incarnations in the years to come. I can't even imagine. So for me as a normal individual, I just have to try to keep my side of the street clean and try to be
exactly.
a good person. We're all human, we all make mistakes, but at the same time, so long as we're trying and we're making an effort to make a change individually and collectively, that's what's being asked of us at this time.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I agree, because I mean, to be a horrible person like all those people you just named, all those historical figures, which, I mean, Genghis Khan, that kind of was just the era he was living in. Like, he did what anybody would have done in that era if they wanted control. Which, I mean, it's not an excuse, but I kind of can see his reasoning. But all the more modern ones you named, yeah, they were just horrible people who they did unspeakable, fathomable things to get their way. And maybe it needed to be done in order to make people see that we can't keep living like this. We can't keep having dictators rule countries, and that's what led to democracy in a lot of these countries. But still, it's just a horrible way to get there. I mean, there should be an easier way from point A to point B than having to have mass slaughterings, mass murderings, and just horrible, horrible, tragic events. But I agree with that 100%. But I want to take a step back, because in the beginning, you mentioned Atlantis, and that kind of amused me, because I actually had a guest on the show last week or the week before, and he believes he discovered where Atlantis was, and that it was actually in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Does that Have you heard about that? Does that make sense to you?
Um, I'm not sure about being in the Sahara Desert. All I know is my master. He as a yogi master, especially the ones in India, they have a lot of powers. They can like raise their vibrations. They can like levitate, go through walls, and a yogi master can look at your aura and pretty much know all your past lives. Not that he will tell you that, or she will tell you that, but they have this ability. They also have the ability to project from their body, and the planet herself has an aura. People refer to those as the Akashic records, and they're able to see a full fourth dimensional color sequence of the true history of mankind. And it's been said that we've destroyed 3 civilizations. The last one was Atlantis, um, and Atlantis was around 100,000 years ago. Um, there's not much recollection about the other 2 civilizations, although they are mentioned. But if you study some of the Vedic texts, like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, they talk about vimanas, flying machines. They talk about energy beams being sent to that destroyed a whole army of people. They were basically talking about the atomic war that occurred upon Atlantis, and Atlantis actually fell down by an atomic war, and that's where the Earth flipped on her axis again. And they said that Atlantis actually went down under the Great Flood, which the Bible talks about. So, I believe it's probably under the ocean somewhere, probably under the Atlantic Ocean. And as was the other civilization that we belong to, Lemuria, was also destroyed by an atomic war. So atomic missiles and weaponry have been rediscovered again for the 4th time in our civilization. And if we're not careful, again, we're liable to destroy ourselves with another nuclear war. And if we do that, we'll be reincarnated upon a younger planet because we won't be allowed to come back to this planet. And so we have to learn from they say history repeats itself. We don't want. I think the master talked about 2 weapons that they had on Atlantis. One was called Indra's Dart, which was a controllable atomic weapon, atomic beam weapon, and the other one was funny enough called the Brahma weapon, or the weapon of God, which was an atomic bomb, and it completely destroyed the civilization of Atlantis, which we belong to. So history does repeat itself if we're not careful, and we've come back to the atomic race again, and we have to be aware that these forces of darkness want to destroy civilization again, because if they do, the people that die in these terrible deaths, they're able to control they go to these lower realms, and they're able to control them and create these vast evil empires in these lower astral realms. So that's again another aspect of truth that mankind has never been talked about. So these are unfortunately horrific truths, but they're truths that we need to understand has happened in the past, and we don't want to repeat it.
I agree. I mean, that's all I can really say. That is, I agree 100%. And I mean, well, from what he said, the reason, I mean, there probably was Atlantean. He believed that there was Atlantean cities like on the oceans, like basically on the coast. But he believed the capital was, I forget the name of the country he said, but it's a country in Africa, and it's a desert now. But it's been recorded that thousands and thousands of years ago it was a lush green jungle, basically like not the Amazon, but like the Congo kind of. And he believed that's where the capital city of Atlantis was, where the head the king of Atlantis would be. And he believed that they had territories or colonies throughout the Europe, outside of Europe and Asia, and maybe even
Well,
America.
yeah, I haven't done much research on Atlantis, so I'm not an expert in there. Although somebody mentioned that in parts of near Pakistan and India, they found high radiation levels still there, and molten rock that there's been melted, which they believe was by atomic explosions. So I can't really pinpoint the exact location of Atlantis, but can say based on my master's findings that it was destroyed by an atomic war, unfortunately.
Which makes sense, because it makes a lot of sense. I mean, atomic war is going to destroy us all eventually if things don't change, like you said earlier, and I agree with that. And actually, you're not the first person I had on here either that said that there was multiple dimensions up and below us and above us. Like there are. I truly believe that. The last person I had on here, he actually wrote a book about lucid dreaming and astral projection, and he visited different dimensions while lucid dreaming and projecting himself. And He said some of the creatures you meet in these dimensions are nice, and they seem friendly. You can't understand anything they're saying or trying to tell you, but they're friendly and you get a good vibe from them. But he said some of these creatures are scary as could be, and you just instantly get a horrible feeling when you're around them, like it makes you sick to your stomach almost. Which,
Yeah, well, I mean, when when we sleep, part of our consciousness does project to these different realms, and again, depending on our vibration, if we're drug addicts, we'll probably go to realms that are not very popular, not very nice. Or if if we're healers, we'll probably go to higher realms. And so, yeah, a lot of us have these experiences, but we don't, only under the controlled use of, yoga meditation can we project positively and gain that full consciousness of astral projection. But the majority of us do it unconsciously, but we do, all of us, I think at night, part of our consciousness does project to these other realms. And, either we have nightmares or we have beautiful dreams. Again, it depends on where we end up. Absolutely true.
yeah, that makes sense. And that's where our nightmares and dreams come from, is alternate dimensions, and that's why they can be truly horrifying at times as well. And that's why sometimes they also can seem like dreams can seem amazing at times. But unfortunately, I don't get to dream that often anymore. I haven't had a dream I can remember in years. I don't know why, but couldn't tell you. But I will say that I do believe in alternate. I believe in dimensions above and below us and all around us, and that. But let me ask you this: do you think that extraterrestrials come from these dimensions, or do they come from outer space, or both?
I believe that just because we have high dimensions here, there's also higher dimensions on different other planets as well. When my master Dr. King, he talked about visiting high advanced civilizations on Mars and Venus, he was laughed at because they don't exist on the physical realm. He said you could go to Mars tomorrow and you could be there for 200 years. You won't even be aware of any civilization unless you project it to maybe level 4 or 5, and then you could converse with them. So a lot of these higher beings, especially the interplanetary, masters, exist on these higher dimensions. That's why sometimes you see a UFO just blink into being. They're able to materialize on the physical realm, and then they can dematerialize and go to a different higher realm. So they do exist on higher dimensions in this solar system and beyond. Dr. King said that all the planets are inhabited by higher intelligences, not on the physical realm. I think apart from Mercury, but he says all the planets are inhabited, uh, uh, by these advanced beings that have been living on these planets for millions of years in complete peace and harmony. That's why they are on the higher realms. They don't need this basic physical realm, and they've lived without war. They have bodies that they can inhabit the same ascended body for like 20,000 years without having the need to change, because they've gone past the reincarnation cycle. They don't need to be reincarnated anymore like we do. So, I mean, old age is a curse on this planet. We're not supposed to be dying at 80, 90 years old. We're supposed to eventually have bodies that are indestructible, that can stay youthful for 10, 20,000 years. That's our heritage. And so we've even forgotten how to age properly. So yeah, these beings do exist, but they exist on dimensions that we cannot at this particular time see or feel. But they do appear many times on the physical realm, just to let us know that they're there.
Which makes sense. And do you think that possibly explains like the sightings of Bigfoot and and sea creatures and other basically cryptids? Like, do you think that explains the cryptids that are out there?
See, as far as Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster and stuff like that, I think that's a different range. Um, but um, but people have had experiences with demons and and hauntings and stuff like that. And I think those are from beings in the lower realms. People have even talked about being abducted by aliens, and I think again, I don't think if they were that advanced, they would abduct anybody. I think those are probably beings on lower realms that probably abducted people while they sleep, and that's a possibility. But I don't think advanced beings like the people, the cosmic beings that I'm referring to, would really, if they cared about the people of Earth, would be abducting them or have any fear against them, because they mentioned that if they wanted to take over this planet, they could do so in 10 minutes. That's the kind of power they have. They look at our nuclear weapons as toothpicks compared to the technology that they have, but they won't intervene on our behalf. We have to, under the law of karma, we've created the conditions that we've created on this planet. So it's up to us. They will help us, help raise us, but we have to make the effort in order to change. They can't come down and suddenly change it for us. It goes against the divine law of karma. We're responsible for our actions, and we have to change our evolution, and then they can help us.
Yes, and I agree with that 100%. I mean, it makes sense, but why don't you tell all listeners where they can find your book and where they can find you if they have any questions, and your group that you're in again. Why don't you go ahead and give that website again?
Yeah, they can go to 12blessings.org, if the 12 being numerical, if they want to join us on a daily basis, sending out power to the world. If you want to read about my book and my master and his organization, the Ethereal Society, you can just go to my website, which is wajidauthor.com, WAJIDAUTHOR, wajidauthor.com, and get information from there.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Wahid. It's been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot, and I love talking about this stuff. So to me, this has just been a fun hour to talk about great things that need to be talked about in this world and put out there. I 100% agree.
Thanks, Jeremy. It was great talking to you as well.
And all my listeners know where they can find me. And I will be back for my watchers next, I believe, Monday with another interview. Thank you all for listening and watching. I will catch you all next time.